Welcome back! It's great to be speaking to you all again so soon. Following the reveal of the Seekers of the Storm roadmap last month, I'm happy to announce that Phase 1, Items and Elites, is here and ready to play on all platforms. Some items are completely overhauled, while others have had significant balance changes. Most items have had impactful quality of life updates too. Those updates range from just addressing reported issues to new visual or audio cues that better communicate their effects. You can read the update notes, link in the description, or jump in right now to experience these improvements, but I'd like to show off some of my personal favourite changes in this update. First off, let's look at Antler Shield. On top of a ground up overhaul, it's also received a new name, introducing the Elusive Antlers. Elusive Antlers grants a small permanent speed bonus, but it has an additional twist. Upon picking this item up, small floating orbs will spawn throughout the stage. Collecting these will grant you an even larger speed boost, but only for a short amount of time. One of our larger goals with this phase was to reintroduce items that could improve some of the scarcer part of the item pool. With Elusive Antlers, we're hoping to give players another powerful way to gain movement speed, but in a way that feels more fun than just boosting flat stats. Breaching Fin, formerly the Knockback Fin, was called out as having a lack of synergies with other items in the game. We liked the ability to launch enemies up into the air. Throwing a hermit crab in the air is objectively hilarious, but we wanted this to be an exciting moment for players to take advantage of. In pursuit of that goal, we've greatly increased the impact Breaching Fin has. Not only does it retain the chance to launch grounded enemies into the air, but they are now stunned for the duration and take an additional 20% damage from all sources while airborne. Players who decide to take advantage of this airborne monster can relaunch it an additional 2 times. Gathering more stacks of the item will reward you with an extra launch per stack. Those extra seconds can give you a valuable chance to exploit their vulnerable state. Stacking Breaching Fin high enough allows you to send enemies high up into the skies above Petrichor 5. Due to this massive power boost, we've upgraded this item from a common white item to an uncommon green item. Whilst War Bonds could be very useful if you attained one early in a run, the bonus gold was quickly outpaced by the ease at which you can collect large sums of money quickly in the mid and late game, so it can seem like a somewhat disappointing item, especially considering its rarity. We've upgraded War Bonds to give it a completely new effect worthy of a red item. Now when you trigger the teleporter event, a barrage of missiles bombard any boss monsters that are foolish enough to appear. That will give you a bit of a head start. Sticking with the War Bond theme, the amount of missiles that appear is increased by the amount of gold you've collected during the stage. Our goal is that this creates some much needed synergy with gold producing items like Gore's Tome and Roll of Penance. Noxious Thorn has had an almost full rework. Its effect now makes it one of the strongest items in the uncommon pool. Previously, this item had a chance to apply bleed to enemies that attacked you, and it also had a chance to increase stacks of other existing debuffs. This mechanic was a little unclear to players, and it was often challenging to tell when this item had actually taken effect. Now the Noxious Thorn has a 10% chance to inflict bleed on an enemy. Upon dispatching your enemy, 33% of all of its debuffs are transferred to another monster within a 20 meter range. Each stack of Noxious Thorn makes these debuffs jump to an additional enemy. With a small stack of this item and some other debuff-themed items like Gasoline and Symbiotic Scorpion, you can spread destruction to huge groups of enemies like never before. The other item changes included in Phase 1 include Chance Doll has had its item log changed to accurately represent its chance of effect. It's also received some visual improvements to let you know when it's successfully upgraded an item. Unstable Transmitter now turns the tables on your foes. Upon falling below 25% health, a glowing radius will appear around the player. Charge into enemies to have them teleported away, and it also applies bleed, just for good measure. Foes that die to this effect also extend the duration of the aura. Sonorous Whispers was a little bit too strong, so it's had its item drop rate from elites reduced to 4% while still retaining its guaranteed drop rates from large monsters. Don't worry, it's still a very strong item. Growth Nectar has had a buff to better reflect its legendary status. It now gives a 7% increase to all stats for each buff you have up to a maximum of 4. The stat increase and maximum number of stacks will both increase with each additional Growth Nectar you acquire. Electric Boomerang has had the interaction removed where it would apply bleed if you were carrying a Sawmerang equipment. Runic Lens, which was always a very strong red item, has had its visuals and sound effects improved to better display when it has taken effect. It's also had its logbook entry updated to make its effect a bit clearer. Prayer Beads has remained the same, but now makes the effect a little bit more obvious by telling you the buffs that you've gained. We've also blacklisted this item from printers as it was being exploited by certain Australian YouTubers. Chronic Expansion has been given a much clearer combo meter mechanic. Now it gives you a temporary stacking damage buff which can be increased and maintained with each kill that you get. This has been paired with a distinct audio warning when you're about to lose the effect. Luminous Shot now requires 3 stacks, still granted by using your secondary attack before being unleashed by your primary attack, but the damage output has been significantly boosted. As an extra bonus, the first stack of this item reduces your secondary ability cooldown by 20%. Long-standing Solitude has had its experience gain increased when every gold would have been gained, and the free unlocks buff is now retained between stages. Previously, when one player in a multiplayer lobby picked this item up, the interactable prices for other players would be increased by 100%. This has now been dialed down to 50%. Warped Echo will now reduce the next source of damage that you take by 30% while spreading it into 3 hits. All Echo damage is now non-lethal except for the final hit. Your Echo recharges every 15 seconds. We've also added a visual indication for when it's available to be used. Bolstering Lantern now gives us attack speed bonus for every enemy and ally in close range, displayed with a new blue outline surrounding the player. Gather additional stacks of this item to increase its range and also increase the maximum number of enemies and allies it will count. Seed of Life now works as expected when given to an equipment drone, and the consumed version can no longer teleport players out of bounds. And Sailstar, my beloved, is unchanged. Both the Twisted and Halcyon elites added in Seekers of the Storm have had massive improvements in this update. Halcyon elites now have lower health and armor multipliers, that should put them in line with other elites on the same tier. They've also been given a brand new gold stealing attack. If you don't avoid these golden spikes, you'll be forced to drop some of your money as a golden nugget, which will eventually vanish if you choose to ignore it. We wanted to keep the priority target intention of Twisted elites, but give the player much more room for counterplay. Now, a Twisted elite will charge up a distinct spiked ball of lunar energy above its head when you deal damage to its nearby allies. If you don't deal with this situation by killing the elite, it will unleash this lunar crystal against you. This attack will track the player until it either hits you or a surface. This should give you a good chance to avoid its considerable damage, but if you want my advice, you should just quickly deal with the Twisted elite as soon as you see it. We've been able to get this first phase out relatively quickly due to much of the work being done prior to the initial roadmap announcement. The team is hard at work on phase 2, but we'll need a little bit more time to get that one in your hands. We'll be able to update you again in the new year. We'd love to hear all of your feedback on the changes we've made so far. The best place to do this is to send us your thoughts on Discord. The link, once again, is down in the description. Thanks again for all of the feedback and your continued patience while we get these updates out to you. Everyone here on the Risk of Rain team wishes you a fantastic festive season, and we'll see you early next year for the next phase of the Seekers of the Storm updates. Bye for now.